Hello YouTube, it's Snowflucky Zemos, and here I'm showing off my Wing Dragon of Ra deck. This is a kind of budget Ra style build for me to bust out during my casual duel night. Very fun deck to just pick up and play in a casual setting, revolving around, Wing Dragon of Ra, one of the iconic Egyptian god cards. Egyptian god cards, big favorites for Duel Monsters era fans like myself. Um, Ra's a card that I started playing around with when the Immortal Phoenix and Sphere Mode card first came out. I'd never cared too much about the Egyptian gods back then, but when they started coming out with all that, legacy dual monster era support back in that time, it got me interested in a lot of them. And after some good pulls, I decided, hey, Ra's something I could actually play. And thus, after getting it and playing it, I have since become a fan of Ra. Definitely a cool looking monster. My favorite of the Egyptian god cards, so it's a great deck to have in my collection. It includes some of the new Ra support from the Rage of Ra pack that came out not too long ago. Last year, I believe it was in 2020. And pretty fun monster. I like Ra a lot because it can get an insanely large attack power. Kind of what I do like about the Egyptian gods, because high attack powers are definitely something that appeals to me as a player. And so it's using some of that, but it's a little more budget because it doesn't have all the real money, uh, the real high expense cards in it. So with that, we'll go into the deck profile. Starting off with our monsters, we are playing 3 copies of the Winged Dragon of Ra. Makes a good opportunity to show off the 3 different beautiful artworks of this card. This is the Egyptian God card from the Duel Monsters era, the namesake of the deck, the Big Boss. It cannot be special summoned. It requires 3 tributes to normal summon it. This card's normal summon cannot be negated, and when normal summoned, other cards and effects cannot be activated. When this card is normal summoned, you can pay life points so that you only have 100 life points left, and this card's attack and defense becomes equal to the amount of life points you paid. You can pay 1,000 life points, then target 1 monster on the field and destroy that target. So pretty cool. 3 tribute summons makes it traditionally hard to get out, but when you summon it, you can either make it a really large attack monster if you need that to end the game, or you can keep it as a monster with no attack but the ability to pay 1,000 life points to destroy cards, monsters. Out of all the Egyptian gods, it's definitely the weakest in its initial printing. Slifer and Obelisk out the gate were a bit better, just because Obelisk had some protection and Slifer's popping ability was pretty good. So Ra definitely needed a bit more to make it playable, which is what they gave it. And with all the support we have, we can make this Ra even better than just the card text. We play 3 of because we definitely want to see it, and this deck kind of goes through like a cycling of Ra, so we definitely want to not run out of resources. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode. This is one of the cards in the Ra deck that is like a legitimately good card. Definitely a card that, in tournament sideboards, it's a card to consider because it can break boards. How does it do that? Well, essentially, this is a card you normal summon to your opponent's side of the field by tributing 3 monsters they control. So if your opponent has a bunch of negate monsters, or they went first and they built up a huge board, monsters that are an issue for them, you just tribute them away for a Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode. That on its own is usually pretty good, but since we're actually playing a Ra deck and can make use of the other effects, that's pretty cool too. So what Wing Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode does when it's on the field, you can't target it for attacks, and your opponent can't target it with cards or effects. So it mostly just sits there unless they want to link or tribute it off. They could XZ, but its level kind of makes it hard to do that. If it stays on your opponent's field for a whole turn, on your next turn, it will return to your side of the field, and when it's on your side of the field, you can tribute it to special summon a Winged Dragon of Ra from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, and if you do, its attack and defense becomes 4,000. So it gives you a 4,000 attack Ra out the gate. You don't have to pay your life points. 4,000 attack's pretty big. You got access to the 1,000 life point popping ability. Pretty good card. Do note, while you tribute your opponent's monsters for this, you also can just summon a sphere mode on your side of the field if you, you know, if you have 3 monsters to tribute. Definitely something you'll do, so got to keep that in mind. And another card that we always want to see, so we're playing 3 of, and yeah, not bad to even see multiple. Next up, I'm playing 1 copy of the Winged Dragon of Ra, Immortal Phoenix. This is another big payoff for the deck. It can't be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by its own effect, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. If the Winged Dragon of Ra, and important that Winged Dragon of Ra is in quotation, so it means only the original Ra, not Sphere Mode. If the Winged Dragon of Ra is sent from the field to your graveyard while this card is in your graveyard, special summon this card. Cards and effects cannot be activated in response to this card summon. This card is unaffected by other card effects. You can pay 1,000 life points to send a monster on the field to the graveyard. So it's like Ra's normal popping, except it's sending, so it's better because it's not destruction. Gets around to monsters that are immune to destruction. And then, of course, once per turn during the end phase, send this card to the graveyard. And if you do, special summon a Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode from your hand, deck, or graveyard, ignoring its summoning conditions. So that's kind of how it works, is that you go Sphere Mode into Ra, into Immortal Phoenix, and then when Immortal Phoenix leaves, it becomes Sphere Mode again. So that's what I call the cycle of Ra. You keep, you know, because Sphere Mode will become a Ra, Ra will eventually be dealt with and become an Immortal Phoenix, and then Immortal Phoenix will become a Sphere Mode. Now, since Sphere Mode cannot summon the regular Winged Dragon of Ra from the graveyard, the loop will end after you do it 3 times, but usually that's pretty much enough. You're going to win or lose by that time anyway. But yeah, Immortal Phoenix is a great payoff. 4,000 attack monster. Uh, you know, 4,000 attack monster that is unaffected by card effects makes it pretty hard to deal with. You can do lots of damage. You can clear the board with its effect, and just create a really powerful resilient Ra engine that is a lot of fun to play, so very glad to have that. Next up, for the rest of the monsters, I am playing 3 copies of Prediction Princess Terratray. That is right, I am using the Prediction Princess cards as a way to support the Ra build. There's a lot of good synergies with some flip effect monsters that work here, and Prediction Princess Terratray works pretty well with the Ra cards. So Terratray is the big payoff for a flip effect based deck. It's a ritual monster, 9-star ritual. During the end phase of your turns, you can special summon a flip monster from your hand or graveyard in face down defense position. Pretty cool. Gets you monsters, get you more monsters, get you face downs in flip monsters in face down defense position so that you may be able to use their effect. And then, of course, you can also activate one of the other effects of Prediction Princess Terratray. During either player's turn, you can target a face-down monster on the field and flip it into face-up attack, or you can target a face-up attack position monster and use it to flip it to face-down defense. Pretty great effect. Use that to proc flip effect monsters on your opponent's turn. You know, use it to manually set them back to get multiple flip effect triggers. Pretty awesome effect for flip effect monsters. It's a 2,700 attack, and one of the nice things about this deck is that since this is a 9-star ritual, any of your excess Ra cards, including you know, Immortal Phoenix, which is a card we want to get to the graveyard, can be used as the ritual tribute for Terratray, so that works out pretty nicely. And Terratray will get us all the flip effect monsters that we need for the rest of the deck, and be constantly flipping them. You can also use the flip as kind of an interruption for an opponent's play combo. Next, any card that plays Terratray is going to play Pot of the Forbidden, which I am playing at 3 copies. 3 is sometimes a little excessive, but this is a card I really need to see and really need online, and having multiple on board is not bad, so 3 is what I'm playing it at currently. Pot of the Forbidden is a 9-star flip effect monster that when you flip it, you can activate one of these effects. You can either draw 2 cards, return all spell and trap cards on the field to the hand, destroy all monsters your opponent controls, or look at your opponent's hand and shovel one of those cards back into the deck. All very powerful effects. You'll want different effects at different times. Normally the one you will use the most is probably the one that will destroy your opponent's monsters. You can use Terra Tray to flip Pot of the Forbidden on your opponent's turn and destroy their monsters to interrupt a play, interrupt a combo. And, sometimes that'll leave them in the water. But all the other effects are great, drawing 2 cards to fuel your next turn, bouncing all back row before you want to push for game, or even looking at your opponent's hand if you've already exhausted them of their resource in their top deck mode, well, you send that card right back. So Pot of the Forbidden is very great. It's 9 stars, so one of these is enough tribute for Terra Tray, and then Terra Tray will summon it right back from the graveyard. Next up, I am playing 2 copies of Spirit of the Fallwind. This is a monster that's 1800 attack. If this card is normal summon, you can add a flip monster from your deck to your hand. Definitely a card that is worth switching the ratio on Pot of the Forbidden. You can play 3 of these because there are other flip effect monsters we want. And, just 4-star normal summon, 1800 attack is solid, and getting us a flip monster that we need. Normally it's Pot of the Forbidden if we don't have it, but if we have Pot of the Forbidden and need one of the other pieces, we will grab it next as well. But a reason in defense of the 3 Pot of the Forbidden is that I'm playing 2 copies of Prediction Princess Coinrama. This is a flip effect monster that says you can special summon a level 3 or higher flip monster from your deck in face down defense position, but you cannot activate effects for the rest of this turn except Prediction Princess monster effects. So Coinrama can, of course, float into itself, or it can become Pot of the Forbidden. If it gets attacked, it gets destroyed. You can set it up so that you'll get a Pot of the Forbidden face down in your field for you to activate on your next turn and have available for all your plays. This card is searchable from the Prediction Princess Ritual spell, so another reason we run it. Pretty handy tool to have. And last for the flip effect monsters, and kind of the main reason I've decided to use my Prediction Princess is that it allows me to use Scapegoat. Scapegoat is a pretty good card for, getting out raw. It's a flip effect monster that says I can special summon any number of black sheep tokens. So essentially, I can fill the rest of my remaining board spots with black sheep tokens, and those tokens can be used to tribute for a sphere mode or a winged dragon of Ra, depending on which one I have access to. This Prediction Princess I've always found generates lots of monsters and leaves lots of bodies on the field, which is why I thought it would be a good choice to play Ra in. Scapegoat is kind of the big payoff in that. You will always get enough, tokens to, give you enough bodies to tribute for Ra. Pretty good. This is a card, if we have Pot of the Forbidden, we want to search this off of Spirit of the Fallwind, because it cannot be summoned off Coinrama, given that it is a 1-star, but a good card to have nonetheless. Next up, for our spell cards, I am playing 2 copies of Millennium Revelation. This is one of the raw support spells. You can send a Divine Beast monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard, add a monster reborn from your deck or graveyard to your hand. You can send this face-up card you control to the graveyard. This turn you can special summon the Winged Dragon of Ra from your graveyard with Monster Reborn, ignoring its summoning conditions. And during the end phase of the turn this effect was activated, you must send the Winged Dragon of Ra you control that was special summoned with Monster Reborn to the graveyard. You can only use each of these effects once per turn. So Millennium Revelation is a pretty cool card. It can dump our Immortal Phoenix into the grave. It can dump a regular Ra into the grave and add Monster Reborn so that we can summon any Winged Dragon of Ra's in the grave, including ones that we use for the ritual summon of Terra Tray, if we do that. And, at the end of the turn, it will send Ra to the graveyard, of course, but that would trigger the Immortal Phoenix, which could then get the Ra loop going, getting us a sphere mode, and then more Ra's. And, of course, the second Millennium Revelation can have us repeat the Ra Revival. All pretty cool stuff. Not the most powerful play. It's a little clunky. And I will admit, if I had the new support from the Ra not the Raw, the Slifer and Obelisk structure deck, I would probably switch this card out for that spell card that tributes opponent's monsters, just because it's more copies of Sphere Mode. But this is a pretty cool card. It does provide some great use in being a way to get Immortal Phoenix out of the hand into the grave. And, you know, searching Monster Reborn, looping Monster Reborn, that's pretty cool outside of just the raw plays. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Prediction Ritual. This is our ritual spell that allows us to ritual summon Terratray, and it has a bonus effect that other than the turn this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard to add a Prediction Princess monster from your deck to your hand. So we can use that to grab a Terratray if we need a follow-up ritual summon, or we can use that to grab Coinrama, just get a card out of the deck. You know, Coinrama is a card we can use, so very cool. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Prepreparation of Rites. This is a spell card that lets us search a ritual spell and a monster whose name is specifically listed on this ritual spell. So that this one card will get us Prediction Princess Terratray and the ritual spell. So you know, that's plus card advantage, gets us both things we need, does not conflict with Pot of Extravagance. Great card to have. Next up, we have 1 copy of Monster Reborn. You know, special summon a monster from either player's grave. You know, we use this with Millennium Revelation. Got extra synergy. We can play it multiple times. That's pretty cool. 1 copy of Foolish Burial. This is mainly as a method to get Immortal Phoenix into the graveyard. But if Immortal Phoenix is already in the graveyard, then it can also get us either a Pot of the Forbidden or Scapegoat, just a flip effect monster that we want to summon from the graveyard off of Terratray if we don't have access to it. So that makes it a pretty good card to run. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. This is, you know, a deck that isn't extra deck heavy. There's not a lot of great extra deck plays to make, so I'd rather just get more card advantage. It doesn't conflict with Pre-Preparation. Pot of Extravagance, we banish 3 or 6 random cards from our extra deck face down and draw a card for every 3 that we did. So 6 extra deck cards becomes +2. We have to use it at the start of main phase 1, and we can't use other draw effects when we play this card, but that's plenty worth the trade-off. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Flawless Perfection of the Tenu. This is another card package that may be substituted for just general good support from, you know, Egyptian God structure decks or, you know, the Egyptian God field spell even. But Flawless Perfection of the Tenu is a card that I quite like in Prediction Princess because we can't make much use of its all non-effect monsters on the field are unaffected by monster effects, but Flawless Perfection of the Tenu does state that if we control a non-effect or face-down monster, which will control plenty of face-down monsters, and our opponent's special summons an effect monster, we can draw 2 cards. So, you know, that gives us a way to generate more cards, especially on the opponent's turn. So it's a pretty cool, like, since it's not, you know, as necessary as, say, in like Tenu decks and whatnot, or normal monster decks, we're only playing the 2 copies. And of course we'll play 1 terraforming so we can search that copy, thin the deck, get us our field spell, and you know, draw cards. Alright, that's it for the spells. Now on to our trap cards. I am playing 2 copies of Sun God Unification. This is the raw trap card. It says if you control a monster whose original name is the Winged Dragon of Ra, you can activate this card during the turn it was set. During the main phase, you can pay life points so that you only have 100 left. 1 special summon the Winged Dragon of Ra you control gains attack and defense equal to the amount of life points you paid. So it's just a trap card that gives your Ra the ability to use its normal summon effect when it is special summoned. So that way you can time it right and give your Ra the huge attack you need to win the game. But more importantly, what makes this pretty cool is once per turn you contribute 1 the Winged Dragon of Ra to gain life points equal to the attack of it on the field. So you don't even have to really risk those life points because you can just get them back. And this even works if you've summoned a Ra off of Sphere Mode. And Winged Dragon of Ra has 4,000 attack out the deck, and it's about to get outed. You can just tribute it instead, gain 4,000 life points, which is pretty big. And of course, what's cool about that is that would be a way that Winged Dragon of Ra is getting sent from the field to the graveyard, which will let you summon your Immortal Phoenix. So pretty cool trap card, just always makes Ra a potent threat without the risk, so we're pretty into playing that. And then last up, this card is kind of shaky in this deck, but I am playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. Like I said, we're paying life points, so this card can be pretty shaky. But with the Ra loop, and honestly, getting Ra having 4,000 attack a lot of the time because of the strategies in this deck, makes it not too bad. It will lose you the game if you play it wrong sometime, but the thing about this is when you got the loop set up, when you've got your Prediction Princess interrupting your opponent's turn, I just like having this card in the back row ready to go so that I can answer whatever card is going to out my board. It's a fragile deck, and I want to protect it as much as I can. Solemn Judgment is just the general good say no card. And that is enough that I am playing it at 3. I definitely like it more than I don't, but of course, the trap cards and whatnot can always be adjusted to deal with whatever you're up against. So 3 Solemn Judgment just to protect my setup board. And that is it for the main deck. As I mentioned when talking about Extravagance, this deck isn't a extra deck. There's not a lot of great extra deck plays, so mostly my extra deck is just waking the dragon targets. There's a number of different options you can do. There's a lot of the, you can play some link monsters to take advantage of the scapegoats. That's probably your best bet for non-waking the dragon style extra decks. But that would be up to the discretion, so I'm not really including those specifics in here. Just wanted to let you all know. The extra deck is mostly just for Extravagance fodder. So with that, that concludes my build of my Winged Dragon of Ra deck. Just a fun, cheap way to play Ra in a casual setting. And it's a little different and unique. There is definitely support from the Egyptian God structure decks that I gotta look into picking up. And, when I get my hands on that, we'll see an update on this deck profile. Maybe I'll try to build a more traditional Ra build, but Prediction Princesses are something I've played a lot of with a number of different strategies, and Ra just fit in there, so I figured I might as well add it to my casual deck collection. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your favorite Egyptian god is. We can, have the War of the Egyptian God debate in the comments below. And let me know what you think. I appreciate you checking out this video. We'll catch you all in the next one.